What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, life stuff. We just concluded another romance experiment. This one was a weird one. Top to bottom weird. This time we went completely outside the norm, and it wasn't a disaster, but it was strange, and I thought about some things. First, typically I go for women who go for me. You like who likes you. Because when someone is really into you, nothing is difficult. Or at least the difficult stuff happens later, and it's not bullshit difficult stuff. This one was weird in every way possible. Another ASPD, INTJ this time, and she's been around for a while. And part of the reason it was weird was she reached out a long while back and reached out a few times after that, and she annoyed the shit out of me each time because she kept reaching out and then motioned like she expected to be pursued. And I still think that's part of it. Now, I feel confident that's not all of it, but she kept picking the worst moments. Anyway, her insistence lasted about a year, and something clicked this most recent time. She must, and I'm still trying to figure this out, she must be into me somehow, because there's no way she would be this insistent for this long, and also doing it in a non-hostile way, which a lot of people don't have the courtesy to do. And also after we'd had negative interactions, because I treated her like anybody else the first couple times, and then I think it was the third time we had a negative interaction, because she came at me like she was expecting to be valued, and that never goes over well with me, and I was very ugly. But still, there must be something there for her to go about this like this for this long. And I think that was the switch that flipped. If she's willing to do this much for this long after negative interactions, and now without being, never being ugly hostile, this might be an opportunity to try to like someone who likes you in a different way. And also, that level of mentally ill, but in the mentally determined sense, determination, that would probably be good mother material. So we spoke for a few days, and it was the same thing it had always been, except with some new little twists revealed, but at its core, the same thing it had always been, which is a destination and not a journey. That was the problem, I think. Because almost nothing moved her in any direction. Negativity didn't push her away, positivity didn't pull her in, and I've determined we're going to keep her around in some capacity. Because whatever her deal is, I think there can be mutual benefit there, but it won't be in a romantic capacity. Because do you know what she feels like in her essence? I forget what they're called. I'm pretty sure what little I remember, I'm going to get the words wrong, but in Elden Ring, I think they're the Empyreans, and each Empyrean comes with a familiar. That's what she feels like. Irrationally supportive, but not in wife capacity, which is weird for me because in my construction of the world, your romantic partner should be the only person you can trust. Should be. And again, she came in saying she wanted that role, and then, but then, not fitting, but not maliciously so. We're going to have to figure her out at some point, but for now, we are going to sit and reflect. Why didn't she fit the wife role? Well, first, I thought it was strictly her asexuality. I love my whores. Every important relationship or connection I've ever experienced has started from the jump with extreme sexuality. And this is another thing I thought about. I always talk about my two major life relationships. That was an ENTJ and an INTP, so maybe we keep it, or like keeping it, in our quadrant. Our own little slice of our quadrant. I'm not sure. Also, a video in this vein, a typology video we're going to have to make, is the way the lower SI types, so your NFPs and your NTPs, are sleeper goers. People don't talk about that enough. Nobody can match our freak. And I know you hear about the asexual INPs regularly, and there is an image that comes with the NPs. But I'd be willing to bet a large sum of money most NPs are big time freaks. Anyway, with this woman, despite her insistence on closing in on me and trying to get me closer, which she did in a couple interesting ways, there was zero sex drive there. And I said earlier, like who likes you. Typically, that's a way I gauge who likes me. And I thought more about it, and I had a hypothesis, so I tested it, and I think it's proven true. What you need in a strong, passionate romantic connection is synchronization. And sex is a big part of that. That is the temple, that is the attuning spire. And I think it is the bridge between, if there is a bridge between the material and the spiritual, that's where it is. I don't think it's any mistake. Lots of magical systems revolve around sex rituals. But the key is you don't need to be engaging in sexuality to figure out whether or not you're synchronized or to become synchronized. But while you are not ritualizing, what you need to be doing is spending your time determining whether or not you'd be ritualizing well together. I love the way I put it in my notes, which I haven't transcribed yet. Words are the pennies and dimes of communication. Words are the loose change of understanding one another. In every situation. I love English. I studied English. I practice English. I love language in general. It's one of my favorite things. But you don't need language in any communicative situation that matters. You know when someone is threatening or they're a problem or there's something wrong with them without their needing to say anything. At the same time, when you're with someone you like or you're with someone you love, you don't need to say anything to communicate what's important. And in fact, in the most important forms of communication, like blowing fat loads, language misses the point entirely. Language falls so short. And that's what I mean when I say synchronization. Are you sending and receiving signals with another person in a way you both understand and are receptive to, with no words required, or even in spite of words, which we'll get into using this woman as an example. And also, are you hungry to know one another in ways language can't satisfy? Because that's part of a passionate relationship. Oh yeah, that's where another bit of my notes came in. I think in my notes I put 5 levels, but there are actually 4 when you're dealing with a woman, probably when you're dealing with a man too. Level 1, there's nothing there. This person is completely an NPC. There's no soul. Then you have level 2, which is there's something there. They're maybe not a complete NPC, or they're not an NPC at all. They have a soul. There is something there, but it doesn't interest you. You don't care to know it or to understand it. These are your enemy player characters, maybe. Then there's level 3, which is there's something there and you'd like to know it. This is where the seeds of passion, the seeds of love come in. And typically, if you're at stage 3, you're gonna get to stage 4 if you're both on the same page. And level 4 is there is something there and you need to know it. You need it. You need them. And it's kind of rare you actually get to level 4. Usually you'll get there mutually, sometimes you'll get there alone. And boy, does that never end well. Anyway, when you hit level 3 and you have synchronization going on, you are hungry for one another. Language isn't cutting it. And that's where passionate, degenerate sexuality comes into play. Also, the major loving actions come from the sacrifices, the sufferings you take on for another person that you would not do for anybody else. And you know you're in this state when you cannot pry yourself away from another person for any reason. You're hot for them all the time. And even when you aren't, there is still that hunger for them, that craving for them. I said before, sex is a huge part of it. It might even be the primary part of it. But that's not all it is, because you cannot stop. So here's what I did. I took the evidence this woman was really into me, or wanted something from me or with me, because it wasn't just the insistence. There were other little things that were outside the mold she had built for herself. And I got myself into a mindset in which I was hungry for her, and as tuned into her as I could be, while also being as tuned into myself as I could be. If you think about synchronization like cell service, this was like me climbing to the top of a mountain to get the clearest signal possible. Because even without trying super hard, we had a little chemistry, and we were able to send and receive signals to one another a bit. But I got myself into the best position I could to send the signal. We're not on the same frequency right now, and she's not in my wheelhouse. I get the impression I'm not in her wheelhouse, but there is a way for us to get on the same wavelength and go somewhere different outside both our wheelhouses and figure something out here. Let's get in sync. Let's be hungry for each other and speak the same language so we can figure something out. And being vulnerable like that is uncomfortable. we need to figure out how to be into each other. For me, that is sexuality and the conversations that are able to happen with someone you are sexually open with. It feels weird talking about this because we're in an anti sex society. But for me, it's a chicken and the egg situation. It's not just blowing loads, it is everything that happens in and around blowing loads. The conversations you have with someone you are sexually real with, nothing compares. You don't need to be shooting ropes 24/7, but you need to have that openness or that unity, that understanding established so words on this lower level of communication can mean anything. Because that was the problem. We were having lots of conversations, but they didn't mean anything. Or at least not much. And this feels like you're in a tutorial area, and you can grind a tutorial area up to a point, but then you stop receiving XP from that tutorial area at all. That was the level our conversations were on. They weren't meaningless, but we could have a million conversations in that area, and they would take us only so far, and it's not that far. And I was hungry for her. I framed it as if this was simulated. It wasn't. It's more like you have to find it, but you don't mind having to find it because there's enough there, and once you've assembled enough of the puzzle, you want to assemble the rest. So it was real. And another reason I didn't mind doing it was whatever was happening on her side of the fence, I'd seen enough to know she was doing something. She was doing her own puzzle assembly. But she kept an iron curtain up. And that's another thing I mean when I say words can go only so far. She would tell me anything I asked, but she wouldn't tell me anything I didn't ask, or more importantly, couldn't ask. And I don't mean couldn't ask with words, I mean I want to know you well enough, if not to understand in words what you are or what you're doing, then in some way know you. Know what you're doing, or at least get a sense of it. Because clearly, it's like we're alien species trying to communicate. And that's what this signal from the mountaintops was. In case you're missing my signals, or misinterpreting my signals, or receiving my signals clearly but are still having reservations, or whatever might be going on your end, here is who I am and what I'm thinking and what I want, what I see with you, as clearly and as purely as I can manage. And she reacted to it as if I had not done anything outside the norm. Now, because we were a little synchronized, my read, in spite of anything she might have said or would say, is she got the message, but there was still some disconnect on her end, and she wasn't going to do anything about it, or she wasn't going to inform me of it, and it is what it is. And that's when I got annoyed. Because it's like we're right back to the squarest one of the square ones. The only difference now being I know that she's not bullshitting. Something is going on there. It's not bullshit, which is saying a lot because a lot of women are bullshit and bullshitting. But it's also not a good deal we're in here. Because I don't want to spend my passion time on someone I am unable to establish that passion with. You know, in some games, the way the end game is the actual game, and once you get there, it's like a completely different game opens up. That's where I want to be with a person or a woman I'm spending my passion time with. Which is why we're going to have to figure out something else to do with her. She's not getting thrown out or thrown away because she wasn't doing some scammy shit. At least I'm... Something in my gut tells me she chose to do something that bugs me that I can't see internally. But she did not fuck around the way the sort of woman who annoys me fucks around. So if she can't make this deal, or if this is not the deal to be made, then we'll find some other deal. Part of this video exists to analyze what went on there. Because I've said it before, but when I make videos, I'll take little notes here and there, which you can read for free on the Patreon. Free membership. But I don't script everything out. I go in with topics I want to hit, and as I'm talking, usually I will stumble my way into something useful that I wouldn't have stumbled my way into just thinking about it. But the other part of the video is to emphasize this synchronization thing. Sexuality and synchronization are vital to relationships. Those come first. I believe you can have a loving, lasting, passionate relationship with any sort of person, from any background, as long as you are on that same wavelength, which you use sexuality to measure or to get back in line with, and so on. Or maybe it's like a Janus situation, two faces of the same god. If you aren't communicating with each other on a higher level, psychically and physically, and also if you aren't hungry for one another, want to take of your partner and be taken of from your partner by your partner, nothing worth anything is going to happen. At least in my book. There are absolutely power couples out there. Power marriages, diplomatic marriages, marriages of convenience, all sorts of connections. I don't care about those. They're nice to have, but I'm alive because I'm hungry spiritually. And the more time you spend in that end game with someone, the more worthwhile a life you're leading. Every nut busted brings you closer to divinity. Every inspiring 15-hour conversation, like you're on amphetamines to stay awake to continue speaking with each other, with someone you've blown a good load with, brings you closer to divinity. Every 5-hour argument you have with someone with niche citations, specific citations, all communicated or all worked out in a second, in a look, brings you closer to divinity. Just being together in one another's minds is a divine thing. And you get there And this is what I mean by the Janus thing. Yes, you get there in part by coming well. That is a very important part of it. But you can be there with somebody without that. If you want to get as close to godlyhood as possible, you need that. But from the jump, you don't actually. And this is what I mean by I love my whores. We get filthy quickly, but that's a side effect of the fact the moment they show up, we know what we are. Two thieves who meet in the street or meet in the road at night need no introduction. It's like that. And that's why I love my knucking futz ENTJ women. Because ENTJ women typically will be insane, but with you be weirdly coherent and self-aware, understandable. You're even able to empathize with them, which for me is a big deal. That's something I don't do. Lots of sympathy, almost no empathy. It's like this rabid animal is a rabid animal to everybody else, but between the two of you, you make complete sense to one another. And something else, I know I make people uncomfortable in one-on-ones, but I didn't know how or to what extent. One woman compared me to a wasp, which I liked. I know that was supposed to be kind of a jab or a consider this thing, but I think you're right about that. Another reason I like being in sync with a woman is it's nice to be seen as not a wasp. Because I am a wasp, but that's not all I am. That's what I have to be. I try to make myself more of a wasp every day, but that's not what I started as. That's not what I am in my core. That's not all I am. And it's nice to be seen for that and appreciated for it and be able to be that to somebody, be that other thing to somebody. And to see them for what they are, not a rabid animal. It's just a beautiful thing, and it's one of the only things that makes life worth living. Even when you are not in it, you know it's there, and knowing it's there is what keeps you level. And with this new woman, this other woman, we were in sync enough that I got flashes of what she was. And it was actually frightening. We do this ASPD thing. I'm still fascinated with sociopaths. They're endearing to me. And all of you guys have these different souls, and it's just the sweetest thing, even though you are awful and you hurt me. Why do you hurt me? Not the case with this woman. I joke about sociopaths and destroying their enemies, the Conan the Barbarian shit. And it seems like in ASPD conversations that persona is always there. It's fun. It's true. It is true. But that's not scary. Because, yeah, you're a risky human, you have a past, you could do all these fucked up things, and maybe you do sometimes. And it would be bad to get shot. It would be bad to go to prison for the rest of your life. It would be bad to be hospitalized. It would be bad to be a lot of things. But that's all mortal shit. There's something in this woman that is a world apart level of wrong and alien and real devil shit. And maybe that's part of why there was this block. I refuse to believe she's not aware of it. And when I first saw it, it scared me, but then on that mystical level, this is fine. This is really bad, but this is fine, and it's interesting. I wanted to know whatever that thing was. Because sociopaths have their rhythms. They are superficially charming, they're also way back end charming a lot of the time. Humans from a very distant culture, from another plane of existence, living among us, but human. This woman, I don't think, is human. Or there's something not human attached to her, or she's been selected by something not human. Because her rhythm is unique. I haven't met one like her yet. I guess it's just going to be a mystery. And in doing sociopath stuff, and also in doing romance stuff, we always relate back to the sociopath who kicked off the sociopath arc, that INFJ. Xenomorph, I admire its purity, emotional serial killer artistry. And I said to this new woman at the beginning, I have a feeling you're going to be the opposite of what the INFJ sociopath or sociopaths were. And I think that's true on all levels. Because the INFJs were master communicators. They were, when they were doing what they did, so human they were more than human, better than human, which is why they're so enthralling. But they're human, and they're here to do shit to you, to get shit from you. And I don't believe they were... I still, and this is stupid of me, I still struggle believing it was all a setup, or all hostile. Yeah, and if you put a gun to my head right now, damned to hell if you're wrong, I'd risk it to say something real was there. But then you have this other side, and this woman is an INTJ. Different form of NIDOM. Literally feels like you're talking to an alien. Instead of superhuman communication, accidentally maybe going up to the divine levels, this is like anti-human communication. A negative. And maybe that's why... Maybe that's one of the reasons I don't want to get rid of her, now that we're aware of this. Maybe to figure this out, it has to go in a completely different direction, which means not just a mild recalibration, but a total recalibration. Because it's something. In interacting with her, life revealed another mystery. What the fuck was that? I don't remember the... This feels like a movie trope, but I can't name one place. Oh, maybe it was Freeran. Well, no, because Freeran does the trope, but it's like looking at some... And I think Baki does it too, but I don't watch Baki. I didn't watch Freeran either. I read Freeran up to the point, but none of it stuck. I don't remember much about Freeran. Weird. Anyway, you get a flash of what someone actually is, or what is attached to them. And I have never seen that. And you think you're supposed to have seen that because you're dealing with people like diagnosed sociopaths, xenomorphs. Whatever this thing was, it was existentially scarier than a xenomorph. Because a xenomorph will kill your body, but there are things out there that will kill your soul. And I badly wanted to commune with that thing. But it's not going to happen. At least not that way. And she's said she loves me before. She has feelings for me. But I guess it gets communicated in a different way. It's not. Anyway, the way I do things, she isn't compatible with, or she can't or won't. Probably a mixture of both, which is why I got annoyed because I'm trying here. Why aren't you trying? And she's not entirely to blame because I don't understand the way she does things. It doesn't appeal to me. So, and that's another reason why I don't. There are certain people you don't hate. Of the people I don't hate, I really don't hate her. I just have no idea what she is or what I'm supposed to do with her. Because this is entirely outside my realm of expertise. I don't know. Staying in words alone land isn't going to do anything, especially in the wife slot. That's not going to work. We can't connect sexually. We can't, well, can't and won't on the synchronization level. That's the one little thing that still annoys me is I know part of that is won't. Don't want that side to be known. The wife thing isn't going to work. Can't talk our way there, can't come our way there, and on a strictly psychic level, blocks some kind of a chosen block. An involuntary block or a natural block, those are things you can work with because you're both cooperating to get this big rock out of the way. But when one person doesn't want that rock removed for whatever reason you don't know, uh, that changes the curiosity from passionate curiosity to academic curiosity. And we will try to figure it out somehow. Because whatever that thing was, that changes a bunch of shit. We'll eventually figure out what needs to happen with her. But in the meantime, the takeaway from this video: sexuality and synchronization, two faces of the same God. They together make higher levels of communication possible, and they also make those levels of communication worth having. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.